Hey everybody, it is Jackie Potter and Abel Ramos here with Compass Santa Barbara, and today we wanted to actually do a follow-up video on our first video, which went over the impacts and some of the
NAR settlement.
Yeah, some of the changes that are supposed to be seen once, presumably, that that settlement gets approved. So
Right.
I think originally we talked a lot about the headlines and kind of discussing
What we thought was going to happen.
What we
right?
thought was going to happen compared to what the news was sharing.
Right.
There were a lot of fear mongering and all that kind of stuff in the headlines.
Now
We're about
we're
two
2
months
months
into
in.
the news. We've been in listing appointments. We've been in buyer's appointments.
Consults, yep.
And we have some more things to share about what it's like, not just on paper and in the news, but like truly in the transaction, in the game, in our local real estate market.
Right. What's taking place and why, for those of you who may be wondering why some agencies are still saying it's business as usual. Maybe
Right.
that's annoying to you. Maybe
Right.
you find it confusing.
It is confusing. You have news headlines saying all of this is changing. It's a big disruptor. And then you have all of our brokerages coming out saying
everything's good.
Everything is normal. Nothing has changed. And
But yet you're expecting to pay $0 or confused if you have to pay a commission
Right.
or, yeah, exactly.
buyers now think
It's very
they
confusing.
can't afford an agent, and sellers think they're not paying a buyer side agent. So
Let's get to the bottom of it.
let's get to the bottom, see what's going on, and really, get a good insight on what's happening right now.
So, I mean, the reality is this. You and I were talking about this conversation yesterday. Really, the only changes that are taking place are commission is not advertised on an MLS anymore, right?
Or Zillow, Redfin. At
Right.
this point.
A seller can now go on to the MLS and not have to offer any sort of compensation whatsoever by not, needing to have compensation on the MLS or being allowed to have compensation on the MLS. And buyers will need to enter into a buyer agency agreement prior to touring property. And then they will need to negotiate commission with that buyer's agent in that agreement and will be responsible for paying that agent unless otherwise worked
Specified.
into the economics of the deal. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's the only thing that's changing.
Those are the tangible, real changes that are coming up.
The big changes that we're going to have to deal with as agents come mid-August now. That's what we're going to have to work with.
Right.
That's it.
So a lot of that, as you can see, is on the buy side of the transactions. There will be changes to both contracts. I think we saw a draft of the listing.
Yep. Draft copy of the residential listing agreement that I'm holding here. After seeing this, really gives clear indication. Granted, this is not approved yet, but it's from CAR. How compensation is going to be laid out in the agreement. First and foremost, they move the compensation being negotiable right out front in bold letters. It is negotiable. It's never been fixed by law. How much are we charging to represent you as your listing agent? That's one section in itself on the grid. It's one little row. How much would we be charging if we were into dual agency? How much money would we be charging? Are you offering a commission to a buyer broker, and how much would you be paying? And are you going to pay extra money if a buyer is unrepresented? That's really it. I mean, obviously, it's got a new grid to the listing agreement, but as far as compensation, those are the four categories.
What's important to note about that, to me personally, is the contract has changed. The conversation for good agents has not changed.
Still the same.
Those are things that we have always discussed with the seller and always let them understand that these are topics to be agreed upon collaboratively between me and between the client. So again, has business changed when you're signing a listing agreement? If you are a good agent, informing your clients about where the negotiations happen and what they're paying for and why that benefits them, not a lot has changed.
That's why I think you're hearing it's business as usual.
Yeah.
And that might be frustrating to some, right?
It's confusing to get it from all these different angles.
The reality is you're going to have to discuss commission with the seller regardless.
Yeah, and you should have been. And the
Always.
sellers should have known that they had all of these options. Your job is to tell them
Well, except for the unrepresented. That's
Right.
new, right? Unrepresented.
Yeah, that usually comes up mid-transaction if that were to happen. Well, I guess not at all.
It never would have really come up.
Yeah.
But now they have a category for that. If for whatever reason a buyer comes unrepresented and says, I don't need a buyer's agent. That's a new thing. So we have a new part on the grid for that. But dual agency and paying a co-broker and charging a listing commission is all something you should have had a conversation around anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So nothing's really changing there in our opinion.
And in the statistics and data, I mean, I was sitting in an appointment with a client, a prospective seller, and he wanted to know, like, I don't have to pay a buyer's commission, right? That's how things are. That's how the change is. What is it? What do you think? What is that coming from your brokerage and from your side of business?
Yeah,
and
what are they saying at Compass, or what's being talked about in your office?
Yeah, what's this new standard for paying a buyer's commission as a seller? And what I did was just bring up the history, right? Like bring up, since this has come out in March, this information, all of the active listings and sold listings since then, pull it up and look at the commission that's being offered on the buy side. And I
within that certain price range.
Yeah, so I went in his price range between 2.7 and 3.7. I pulled it up. There was 56 listings that I was going over, 4 of which altered from the 2.5. 2 of those 4, 3%. So higher than the average. The other 2, 2.25%.
So no one in there offering $0.
Nobody is offering
in compensation.
Compensation. And when you have a listing, especially in that price range, and you're trying to get these buyers, you want to be with all of those other listings.
You don't want to put yourself on the bottom of the 56, right?
No.
And even 2.25 is still pretty close to 2.5. Granted, I mean, it's not technically 2.5, right? But I mean, it's technically a discounted commission, but it's by no means 1% or $0. So for those sellers, unfortunately, that are reading the media headlines and thinking that they're going to pay $0 in a buyer's agent commission, I just feel like they were misled from the get-go.
For sure.
Because you're only doing yourself a disservice. And with that kind of information you provided to that client, it allows them to have the power to make an informed and educated decision on commission. It's no longer, well, this is what we pay the co-broker. This is what we pay. It's always been done this way. Whatever it is that they're saying about us, it's pure facts and data. And Robert Refkin, our CEO, sent an email out to the company this week on our Q1 earnings, which were really good, by the way. #1 office in the country. So let's see here. Since the NAR settlement, March 15th, they ran the same search you did, but again, in all of our markets on the MLSs that we're members of. They found that more than 99% of new listings since March included offers to pay the buyer's agent. 99% of new listings included an offer to pay a buyer's agent. That's huge.
Yeah.
Furthermore, more than 96% of those listings included offers to pay 2% commission or more. And more than 67% are offering to pay 2.5% commission or more.
Or more, yeah.
So for those sellers thinking that they're going to pay $0 to get their multi-million-dollar home sold, it's just the data is not showing that it's heading that direction at this point in time. So therefore, I can see why there's confusion.
Yeah, I also think, I think we probably touched on this before, but I explained this to the seller. It's like, if you are offering less, you are probably getting a less qualified buyer coming to you. You're probably getting a less informed buyer coming to you. You're probably getting someone that's strapped a little bit for cash. Is that who you really want coming in, making offers on your home when you have a timeline that you need to get done? The last thing you want is insecure buyers coming that don't have somebody, a good agent representing them, telling them, this is how you offer, this is what you're getting into, these are the disclosures, this is how you can put in
Nor
a
do you
confident
want
offer.
an unrepresented buyer pursuing your property, because that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So the fact that this settlement is even opening up the discussion for unrepresented buyers is only going to backfire on them.
Scary.
It's going to backfire on those people.
On
big
everybody,
time.
on the seller and the buyer, because think about all the things that go missing and the blame game when that transaction goes down.
There are so many ways your transaction can blow up in your face.
Yeah. And not just the transaction, but afterwards. I mean, financially, you could be sued later. There's many liability things.
Lots of lawsuits over disclosure, for sure.
Let us take the heat.
Well, that's the whole point of working with an agent, right? You have forms that are generated by this California Association of Realtors that provide protection to both buyer and seller.
Yep.
Obviously. Provides protection to us. Even at that, with those forms, there's still lawsuits every day.
Then you have educated, informed people telling you how to navigate all of these forms so that things don't go missed. At Compass, we have technology then that also works with us as human beings to make sure things aren't getting missing, explain what disclosures are, redline when you might be using words that are vague. So there's so many things that we do to protect you from that situation.
It's our fault as agents. I mean, not necessarily our faults, but I think a lot of realtors, and unfortunately the media with the TV shows and things, make it seem like real estate's very easy. I think that's why everyone seems to always get into real estate thinking, oh, I'll just do this as a side hustle. Right. Or, hey, I got laid off, but guess what? I'm in real estate, so I don't have to tell people I'm unemployed, when technically you are unemployed. Because as a realtor, you are unemployed every single day unless you have something signed, a listing or a buyer's agreement. You're unemployed.
Yeah.
It's what it is. It just sounds cooler to say you're a realtor versus I don't have a job.
Right. It's true.
So, like
I'm not working.
Yeah, you can get fired one day and go get your license the next. It's just such a low barrier of entry for this industry, first of all. Second of all, you have these shows showing that, like, oh, I can sell this big, giant, $20 million listing like that and all of a sudden make a tremendous amount of money. And it's so easy, and I have no qualifications.
I haven't done anything to do that. Yeah.
And it was so easy. I didn't have to do anything. I just got $600,000.
Wore a really cute dress and high heels.
That's just unfortunate.
I wish.
I wish it was that way.
Abel would be dressed up in a nice dress and heels every single day if that's how easy it was.
Jeez. I mean, come on. This is just ridiculous. So anyways, to kind of keep this conversation going, let's get to what's actually changing. The real changes that are taking place are on the buy side.
Yeah.
Buyers will be responsible, or required, not responsible. Buyers will be required to sign a buyer-broker agreement with an agent prior to touring property. Zillow's tried coming out with these touring agreements so that you could use a realtor to go see houses on the weekends and not have to work with them. I think that's going to fail miserably. I don't even think
who's explaining that to these people who are signing these documents? Already you're starting off with them just sending you a document to sign
You're degrading your value instantly if you were on that platform signing touring agreements. Yeah. Give me a break.
You're already saying
I'm not
I will be unemployed. I will definitely work for free.
Yeah, I'll work for free, which is what we do. No doubt, because we get paid when the deal's done. Yeah. We work for free throughout the entire duration of that transaction.
But it's the energy you bring when you know you're about to meet some stranger that just signed an agreement that says, I don't owe you anything. It's like, how's that person bringing any value to you?
They're none. They're literally a glorified door opener.
Yeah.
And those people will be out of the business, for sure.
Yeah.
You cannot articulate your value and what it is you bring to the table as a buyer's agent. Get out of the business now. Yeah. Start looking for another job.
Yeah.
Because that's where this is going. So buyers and buyer agents will be required to enter into a buyer-broker agreement.
Prior to touring.
And then buyers will be responsible for the compensation of that buyer's agent per the terms of that agreement.
Between you two.
Exactly. And you will be paying that contract, right? The new one hasn't come out. There hasn't been a new one. But the current one that we have, it says you, the buyer, are paying the agent that percentage, 2.5%, 3% commission. Currently, right now, it says unless otherwise, compensated off the MLS. It will obviously no longer say that. But I'm sure there will be some sort of terminology or verbiage there that says unless otherwise compensated in the economics of a deal or something like that, right? So you, the buyer and buyer's agent, will be responsible for having a conversation around compensation. You could be the best buyer's agent in your marketplace. A lot of us have not had a conversation around buyer compensation. I've signed plenty of buyer broker agreements, but I've never had to say, you're going to have to pay me this money, worst case scenario.
Out of your pocket.
Right. I've always said, hey, but don't worry, I'm compensated off the MLS.
Yeah.
That will now be the change. So that's where the real negotiation is going to take place. And then as buyer's agents, we will not be allowed to make more money than what we agreed upon in that agreement, even if the seller was paying more commission than what we negotiated for ourselves. So again, if you can't build value and you don't know what you bring to the table and you can't negotiate for yourself, might as well get out of the business too.
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting paid.
Or if you're going to do it for cheap, in $5,000, $10,000 flat rate, or have a discounted.
Your soul is going to be sucked. This is an incredibly hard business to be in, and if you're selling yourself that short, you are not giving your clients the best version of you,
No.
or you don't have the best version of you. That's
So,
just how that goes.
I do believe this is good for the industry. I do believe this will weed out a lot of the, what do I call them, Cousin Julies?
Yeah, a lot of Cousin Julies.
A lot of Cousin Julies, and my sister
license.
Jan got her license, and I'm going to use her. It'll weed out a lot of that, in my opinion, because if you're going to sign an agreement that says, I'm paying you $30,000 or more, I'm pretty sure you, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, are going to be interviewing your fair share of realtors to make sure you have the best one working for you.
Mm-hmm. I would.
Yeah, buyer agents are going to have to step their game up.
If you're responsible for paying that amount now, of course you want to make sure you're paying that to the best person possible. Now, again, on the listing side, we're hoping there's going to be buyer's compensation so that
there will be buyer compensation. We have the data right now to show there will be buyer compensation, and you could show that to your buyers in the buyer console.
There's a conversation there where you can give them confidence. It's possibly not going to be on you, but bottom line is
worst case scenario, it might be. And most of us as professionals have not had that conversation. Right. And that's where we have to get better at having those conversations.
It should have been had. Because
that's where we're going. So that's really the real changes that we see taking place at this time.
Yep.
I don't see it as 100% business as usual. I do see why people are saying that based on the data that's in front of us, but I do understand why consumers would be confused or upset or feel duped by media headlines that they don't have to pay they don't have to pay a buyer's agent commission, but yet, more than 95% of the listings out there are paying buyer agent commission. So
and
it's
the
confusing.
same that it's been for the last 50 years.
It's confusing. It's just tougher conversations and better dialogue that needs to take place between us and our clients.
Yep.
That's it. And the reason why we're doing these types of videos and content is to educate people that are out there, whether you're in our market or not.
Right. Be prepared. Like if you are a seller or a buyer, whether you're in our market or not, and you're thinking you're going to go try to get a great agent and talk them down, it's like, we're giving you the perspective right now of somebody who really values their work and goes above and beyond and does more than most people in their industry. We can't discount. Like that's just not how it's going to go. Because people, you get what you pay for. And if you understand, basic fundamentals of value, whether it be perceived value, what are the other ones that we would say? There's perceived value. We have, what are the other two? Convenience. Oh, yeah.
That would be there for value. Efficiency. And we have they call it incurring, basically more value for someone that's specialty or niched down. So if you have the skills that we have, which we talk about perceived value, we're in a higher end market. The deals are more complex. The price points are much higher. You're going to be careful about hiring someone who's discounting themselves. No different than, someone in our market not necessarily valuing hacks, because our market doesn't really do well for that.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to save money when it could cost you tons of money, right? So people will pay for fast and efficient service. That's across the board. Look at Uber, look at Instacart, look at DoorDash. I don't even use DoorDash.
People will pay $25 for a burrito to get delivered to their home.
Believe me, your boy's hungry all the time. And I get on that app and just start looking when I really want to eat dinner at or my third dinner or something at 8 o'clock at night. And I look at the prices from DoorDash and I'm like, oh, heck no. I'm not spending $25 on a burrito, right? I should be eating burritos anyway, but I'm saying I'm not going to spend $25.
But a lot of people do. That's why these apps are so successful.
Exactly.
A majority of people do.
We've been at an open house. We've seen people drop off McDonald's or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the?
When I go to my friend's house all the time. I live in Carp. We don't really have that option. But when I'm here in Santa Barbara,
you see it all the time.
All of a sudden we're getting delivery of
They're paying
candy.
more. They're paying more for convenience.
Yep.
Efficient, service.
Yeah.
Put a couple buttons, it's done.
You get what you want.
Shows
and
up
what
on
you
my
asked for.
doorstep. So people are paying more for that. Louis Vuitton purse versus a Coach purse. Perceived value. People are paying more for perceived value.
Yep.
Right? And then, Why do you go to a CPA versus a H&R Block? Well, when you get to a certain income level or you own a business, your taxes are much more complicated. So you want the best possible eyes on those taxes.
Yeah.
Again, I don't question my CPA. Pay tens of thousands of dollars for the businesses we have in just him preparing taxes and giving me advice. We have so much value in what it is that we do.
Yeah.
It's
We've
not
never
worth it
had
for us to
anyone leave
discount
and
our
say
services.
they didn't think they should have paid us.
No.
That's just, you've never seen a review like that. You're not going to see a review like that. That's how it goes.
So, to sum it all up, if you have questions about the settlement, if you have questions about our perspective in our market about this settlement, hit us up, because we understand there's confusion around all this. It's why we love putting this content together. It's why we love chatting on, the podcast about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's always alternating and changing. As this keeps going, we'll probably have another update. I mean, as we get into the negotiations and what an offer actually looks like if a buyer offers over asking for something, but then says, that over asking amount is actually to just pay compensation for the buyer, we're going to start seeing that, and we'll share with you what that really looks like. Things are going to develop.
We signed a listing this week at $3.7 million and got a full commission for our side and a full commission for the buyer side.
Yeah.
That gentleman was fully aware of this settlement, brought it up and asked his question, and simply just wanted our perspective on it. But again, if you build enough value, right, and you build enough trust,
cost isn't a question.
Cost is not even a question.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Totally.
So
reach out if you have questions. We'll keep sharing as we kind of get into the swing of things as the months go on, and we'll just take it from here. But I think our real messaging is, now more than ever, you better be asking the right questions to your agents and sitting down and having conversations, and honestly interviewing multiple, so you can cross-reference what people are saying, what their answers are. Are they just copying Tom Ferry, or do they really speak honestly from where their value is?
I'm laughing right now because she's talking, and because prior to Jackie being on board, I was making these videos by myself, and I ended every single one of these videos saying the same thing, and I feel like you literally just made me have a flashback to why it was so important I was saying that. I never even knew, and it was now more than ever your agent strategy, and I forgot what it was, matter. And you basically just said that right now. Your agent and your strategy to going about this whole real estate, transaction or journey is at the utmost importance. And it's probably one of the only things you really can control when thinking about buying or selling a property.
Who's representing you?
Is who's representing you
through it?
You can't really control the market. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Can't control the timing of the market of whether or not it's good or bad. I mean, I guess you could determine what season you're wanting to list the house in, but you can't determine if it's a low or high interest rate environment. There's so much that's out of your control there. When I really think about it quickly, just from talking brainstorming, we're going to wrap this up. The only thing you can control is your strategy and your agent. Yeah. So it matters more than ever. So you better be interviewing people, or else you're just doing yourself a disservice. And if you're just taking Cousin Julie on because it's Cousin Julie, well, when she hits you with the $30,000 bill, you better be extremely happy with the service.
Otherwise, that's an awkward Thanksgiving.
Right? Exactly. So let's end it on that. I'm Abel Ramos with Compass, Jackie Potter with Compass. We'll catch you on the next one.